All right.
This would be your best way.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
We all felt like we were going to be really good on defense, but I felt like we were going to have the best competitive depth that we've had. Guys that functional football players. You always hear me say that. Guys that can go in and function and play well. Not guys that just go in there and they're talented, but they're a little dysfunctional. That's a different type of depth.
I just try to be consistent, really. Just go back to the fundamentals and pressure situations. I think the quarterbacks, just working with them all year, they kind of realize that if they throw me the ball, I should catch it and take care of it. So I think just the consistency in practice is probably what maybe gains their trust a little bit.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Thursday night, very special Thursday night here on Sports Talk. We come to you from what I think is one of the happiest places on earth. I know say Disney World is the happiest place on earth. I like to think SeaWell's in Columbia is one of the happiest places on earth because we come to SeaWell's, and when we do come to SeaWell's, it's usually for something very, very good and a lot of fun. And tonight, it's the annual Palmetto Champions Awards Banquet, something that we missed last year because with the rescheduling of games and everything being pushed back because of the hurricane, we had to put the awards banquet on hold. So it's good to be back with it again this year. Some of the top senior players in the state of South Carolina and coaches as well will be honored tonight. Big crowd will be on hand here at SeaWell's. If we're fortunate, might be able to grab a player or two. I can't make any promises because of our schedule. Because of their schedule, we'll kind of play that by ear. Other than that, though, a huge show for you tonight here on Sports Talk. We'll have the coach and the quarterback, Chuck Reedy, Steve Tannehill, David Shelton will preview the 4A championships. Mike Morgan on the move in hour number 2. Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell joining us at 7:30, coming off that big win last night at Ohio State, plus more from the Tigers, guys, as they get ready for Miami and the ACC championship. And as we sit here tonight, Tennessee still has no head coach.
Isn't that something? I mean, I swear, it seems like all Tennessee is doing is basically acting as an agent for all of these head coaches and basically getting them all new deals. It's like, you get a new deal. Dave Doran, you get a new deal. All these guys who are basically looking and being curious, for lack of a better term, at Tennessee are ending up with some more money in their pocket, courtesy of their respective universities.
If you're Tennessee or a Tennessee fan, you almost have to go back to the old edict that it's always darkest before the dawn. Or if you have to hit the nadir before you can jump up and grab for the zenith, because they can't get any lower than this. And maybe they'll find somebody, and maybe that guy is Kevin Sumlin.
Well, it's weird. I thought, Corn, they were shooting a little too high for guys like Mike Gundy and guys of that ilk. But the fact that they got turned down by Dave Doran, I mean, I can't think of a more insulting snub than that.
It's pretty embarrassing, and this probably tells you a little something about why Frank Martin wanted out of Kansas State, because you know who his AD at Kansas State was.
Same dude.
None other than John Curry at Tennessee, and thus he had issues there. Is one of the reasons why he was looking to leave, and South Carolina gave him that opportunity. I mean, look, I know athletics directors today, a big part of their job is to raise money, but if you ask me, your number one priority, and you better be good at it, is hiring coaches. Because if you don't hire successful coaches, you're not going to be an AD for very long. I don't care how much money you happen to raise. And this guy might have a lot of positive attributes, but running a coaching search is not one of them. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. First of all, how can you run a coaching search and everybody in the community knows your business? They know who you're talking to. They know who you are interviewing. They know where you've been. Does this guy not know how to operate in secret in any form or fashion? I mean, I know the agents out there run their mouths and tell their buddies on the websites what's going on so they can pump their clients up. I get that. but there's got to be a veil of secrecy out there. This guy hasn't been able to keep anything under wraps because the media covering the Vols have known step for step where he's gone, offer per offer.
Well,
that's number one. And then, like you were saying, I mean, maybe they hold themselves too high. Maybe he should have had a backbone and stuck with Greg Schiano to begin with. If that was the guy that he was wanted, turn a deaf ear to the noise on the internet and stick with your guy and let him go out and prove everybody wrong. So it's just become a national embarrassment.
Two things. The coaching community has basically looked at Tennessee as scorched earth based off of what happened with the Schiano thing. They found that entire situation to be incredibly unfair. And number two, this is, if anything, an endorsement for the reason why guys go out and use search firms, because the search firm can conduct interviews, can basically gouge or at least solicit the interest of candidates before you can even have them in front of you. So in that vein, the search firm is talking to the agent and knows about the interest of the candidate before the university even sits down. Basically what's happening right now is John Curry is basically going around the country like a traveling salesman trying to find anybody to buy his product, and nobody's buying it. It's a problem.
Well, under keys, we could talk about it. Well, Corn, you remember a few months ago, we were sitting here with the coach and the quarterback, and Chuck Reedy said that, his view at the Tennessee is not the job it once was. So perception is a lot of it. It's just like I was talking to a guy today, and we were talking about Arizona State. Well, I'm old enough to know the perception with Arizona State was a tremendous football program under Frank Kush, but that was eons ago. So perceptions change. That's one thing. Tennessee may have got up on their high horse and thought they were more important than they are. And we know it's one of those institutions, even though they have a great pedigree, has to recruit nationally to be a player as far as the SEC is concerned. And it's just been difficult for them right now. And it just does not look like – it looks like a tainted job right now. Tainted.
Well, I tell you, if you're Tennessee and you go hard after the coach at NC State and apparently throw a bunch of money at him and NC State's able to trump that and keep him, you got to look yourself in the mirror and try and figure out what it is that we're doing wrong here. And I think everything that you said and what Will has said has sort of built the backstory here of what the issue is at Tennessee. So Tennessee's search does continue. Arkansas's search still continues as well. As for anything else going on, a big win last night for Clemson basketball. We'll talk with Brad Brownell about that. USC in action tonight up at one of their favorite places. Duke likes to call Madison Square Garden kind of its home away from home. And also, of course, the Meadowlands has always been friendly to Duke. Well, South Carolina had, I guess, the two biggest wins in its history at Madison Square Garden last March, when the Gamecocks won in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight up there, and they go back on that floor tonight at 9 o'clock. They take on a pretty good Temple team. This will be a nice test for the Gamecocks.
It will be, Corn. I got a chance to see them, obviously, in the final game of the Charleston Classic. They're a team that brings a lot of size inside, but if anything, this is a great recruiting situation right now for Frank Martin, because you know how much he loves his New York area guards. Wes Myers is one of those guys. He had, obviously, Rakeem Felder is one of those New York area guards, too, before he had his situation that got him at least somewhat temporarily dismissed from the team. And in our mind, from South Carolina's perspective, only positives can come from this game, and even more positive if you actually win it.
Well, they need another big game from Chris Silva like they got the other day. This Temple team's got some good size, a couple of 6'10" guys in the lineup, a 3-guard alignment with a 6'8" guard in Quentin Rose. Got some names on this team too, man. Shiz Austin, Obi Enachionia, Ernest Aflakapu, or something along those lines.
Obi was the most outstanding player in the Charleston Classic too. So again,
can you handle his last name? Pronounce his last name?
I'd have to see it in front of me again to give an accurate on that.
Well, the key point is the versatility of the South Carolina team. When you got your point guard getting 10 rebounds and your power forward getting 6 assists, that shows you that this South Carolina team may be small in numbers as far as bench, but very versatile when they get that starting lineup in there.
Obi Enachionia.
There you go. All right, we'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We continue with Sports Talk on a Thursday night. Phil Kornblut over at Seawells for the Palmetto Champions Award Banquet. Seawells, of course, great friends of Sports Talk for 30-plus years. A wonderful, wonderful place to stage your holiday event, wedding reception, any kind of big party, holiday party. They are busy as they can be, and they have a beautiful facility right across from the state fairgrounds. So check out our good friends at Seawells whenever you can. Reminder, coming up a week from Saturday, it's the Touchstone Energy North-South game. Tickets are available online at touchstoneenergybowl.com. Also, at Touchstone Energy are giving away 2 tickets to the game. Also, the winner gets a $100 Visa gift card and free Touchstone Energy merchandise. The deadline to enter is tomorrow. So go to the website scliving.coop/touchdown to get your name in for that. Now, one other coaching thing to talk about, guys, and we'll get to some phone calls in a moment. 800-956-7266 plus recruiting coming up. The situation at Florida State is just whack. Florida State, Texas A&M, and then last night, Jimbo Fisher having a public call-in show, as he does every week. Member in the audience asks a question about loyalty on his part, and like he was in Russia, he was escorted out of the room.
Well, you know about how these rights, you know how
by
these,
a Florida State official.
You know how these rights holders work. They don't want anything. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, right?
It's. I mean, I don't know who it was. I don't know who did it, but it was totally uncalled for. I mean, you cannot have a public forum for people to ask questions, and then when somebody asks a question you don't like, you throw them out of the room.
How do they screen?
That's just a bad look.
How do they screen the Carolina calls with Muschamp? Do they pre-record them, or how do they make sure that they don't get a loony bin on that? Because I never worked at a place. I never worked at a place that allows the call-in actually to happen. Usually, you'll get the in-person ask or the email ask, and those are the very, very easy to filter. But the actual when it comes to a call-in show, I have no idea how you can have jurisdiction over that without getting somebody loony who comes in off of that deal.
I was always taught that when you have the microphone, you have the power. When you let somebody irk you to the point where you get off kilter, then you've given them the power. So there's a way to politely brush somebody off with a question, either change the subject, go to a different narrative, or just bluntly answer the question, or outright lie. But I mean, you got control.
The guy's got a point though, Corn. I mean, he's been sitting here flirting with Texas A&M over here on the side. Well, Florida State's got another game to play for bowl eligibility.
Absolutely, he's got a point, and he should have been allowed to stay around. And he never answered it, Jimbo, and the fans in there booed him. But he should have been allowed to stay. That's a very bad look for Florida State. Yes. And, of course, they issued a statement today saying they're investigating it, blah, blah, blah. But it's pretty clear to me there's nothing to investigate except you punish the individual who pushed this guy. He actually made physical contact. In this day and age, you just don't do that. So, man, you just don't do that this day and age, or you face some repercussions. And I think, there'll be some repercussions to come from this, I'm sure. Once a good Tallahassee lawyer gets his hands on this deal, look out.
Well, it's weird because I feel like we're getting to a point where almost it feels like people don't understand, like, it's our job to ask tough questions. Now, this guy's not a journalist. He's a fan, but fans don't want pom-pom waving people asking questions. They don't want they don't want to just hear all the good stuff and just hear what they want to hear. They want to hear some actual criticism. I got in a Twitter fight earlier this week about my questions toward Brent Venables, and this was with a media member. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, it's not our job to be pom-pom wavers. Stupid.
Yeah. And this was a fan and may have even been a contributor to the program. Anyway, that's a mess. But everybody seems to think Jimbo's going to be bolting for Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah, he's gone.
And of course the reports. Everybody's all over the place trying to be first. He's going to announce it today. Florida State's announcing it today. He's not going to coach in the game on Saturday. Willie Taggart's set to come in to replace him. Blah 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 blah. Nothing has happened along those lines as of 6:24 tonight that I have seen. So, All right, very quickly, let's jump to the phones. Then I'm going to dump recruiting on us tonight early. JC in Columbia, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Hey, guys, I'll be brief because I know y'all are professionals, and I got a bunch of Carolina fans. I'm a Tiger fan. Most of my family, all my family's Carolina fans, and all of their questions to me are earlier with the coach. He would have put Bentley on the bench, and they said there's another guy on the bench is pretty good. And I wonder why he didn't do that. That's a good question. I'll hang up and I'll let you guys respond to that.
That's funny. That's
funny. Well,
funny.
because there's nobody on the bench to turn to. Do you think Michael Scarnecchia was going to go in there and light up the Clemson defense?
No.
So they were in a situation where it's been Bentley's ball for 2 years, a year and a half since he took over. And, if Perry Orth was still in the program,
right,
sitting over there, or Brandon McElwain, then perhaps like they did up at Clemson last year, you might have seen something with him struggling, but that wasn't going to be the case this time.
You and I have talked to Michael Scarnecchia. He's a wonderful young man, great ambassador of the program. The people who want Michael Scarnecchia on the football field haven't seen Michael Scarnecchia play. Okay? So let's just throw that out there. We're talking about a significant drop-off in talent level.
Basically, that's everybody, because the only time you've seen him play is in the spring game.
That's what I'm saying. So from that perspective, they were never going to go to Michael Scarnecchia in that game. No way, no how.
Yeah, and we always we talk about some of the problems that Jake Bentley not only had in the Clemson games, but throughout the season when he does some things you think are uncharacteristic of some of the times when he plays well, but not enough credit is being given to one of the best defensive units in college football. I mean, it's not like you're playing against chopped liver. I mean, Clemson has done this to a few quarterbacks, Corn, and will probably do it in the playoffs.
I will give you that, but you know what? At this level, in that kind of game, you as a quarterback, you can't keep missing open receivers and giving and hurting your team's chances. I mean, he missed an open Hayden Hurst early. He had the interception, the pick six, of course. It could be his fault, could be somebody else's fault, whatever. It comes out of his hand. He missed other open receivers. Again, a tendency to throw high. You know, he's got to bear the responsibility for that. He's the starting quarterback.
That is correct,
you know? There's no one there to push him right now, and so he will continue to be the starting quarterback. Yeah. And he could listen. He made strides this year in many ways compared to last year. Now you hope that he makes even greater strides between his sophomore and junior year.
To me, it's odd. It's all very odd.
All right, let me do recruiting here very quickly, because with everything coming up, we're going to get squeezed time-wise. So let's jump into recruiting, which is always a happy thing to do from the happiest place on earth, Seawells. Running back Lynn J. Dixon of Butler, Georgia, one of those former Tennessee commitments, now looking elsewhere. Clemson running back, and they are hard on him. He made an official visit for the Citadel game. He loved it, said the offense at Clemson fits him because that's what he ran in high school. So he was considering signing December 20th. He's now rethinking that, about waiting until January because he's not clear on the decision. He goes to Louisville December 8th, Oklahoma State the 15th, Alabama January 19th, Tennessee, if they ever hire a coach, into it, depending on the hire. No favorite at this point, but a lot of interest in Clemson. Now, last night, defensive back Israel Mukuamu, Bossier City, Louisiana, formerly of Berkeley, announced a decommitment from Florida State. Of course, if you've been following our stuff, you knew that was coming. He committed to the Noles back in late July over USC. And, of course, everything going on with Jimbo Fisher forced his hand here. So, USC, he says, back at the top, but he's looking at Georgia. He's going to Purdue officially this weekend, and he's looking at Indiana. Louisville's popped up, and he just was contacted by USF, so things are happening there. No leader. He's going to wait out his decision to see what happens. He did talk with USC defensive coordinator Travaris Robinson yesterday. Robinson and Will Muschamp plan to be in to see him on Monday. He has taken officials to USC, Florida State, Indiana, and Georgia. Spring Valley linebacker Channing Tindall told the Auburn 24/7 site Auburn coaches are coming in Sunday. He went to Auburn officially last weekend. He said he plans to make his decision in mid-December. USC, Georgia, Auburn, Florida, not naming a leader. And we'll be back in a moment.
We go inside the huddle with the coach and the quarterback up next. This is Sports Talk.
Oh, it's so sad to bring this great segment of Sports Talk to a close for another regular season. Maybe we'll get them back together with us around bowl time before the Gamecocks and Tigers play in their postseason game. We welcome in the coach, Chuck Reedy, and the quarterback, Steve Tannehill, to Sports Talk. Guys, great to have you with us. And, I mean, come on, one of you go apply for the Tennessee job and get that thing solved, will you?
That's a mess. That's a mess.
You're both overqualified. I mean, you're both overqualified.
At this point,
I tell you, it's like they said, probably the worst job of having a football coach in the history of the game. I mean, I don't know how the AD can survive. I mean, it's beyond ridiculous at this point.
Chuck, you're very well connected in the coaching community. What was the reaction, at least from people you've talked to, about the way they handled the Greg Schiano mess?
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody thought that was a good hire other than the AD. And apparently he had, they had a background together, and I think that was, his decision. He made that decision, and I don't know that he had any support for it. And, that thing fell apart. I mean, because that's not what, that certainly wasn't what Tennessee fans were looking for. And, and they found all kind of reasons, obviously, to disparage Schiano. But, from the very beginning, that didn't look like a good hire.
All right, let's get to the game past Saturday at USC. I know Steve really doesn't want to talk a whole lot about it, but we're going to start with you anyway. Where do the Gamecocks go from here to be competitive with Clemson? They're competitive with everybody else they play the last 2 years except for Clemson. Where do they go to become competitive with the Tigers?
The recruiting trail. I don't think there's any way around it. I think a lot of factors Saturday. I think the game might have been a little too big for the youngsters. It's South Carolina's first big game they've been in a couple years. Clemson, every game's a big game when you're ranked in the top 5, and you got to bring it every night. And I hate that Carolina didn't play very well because the atmosphere around that stadium was unbelievable. It's the best that I've been around since the 5th time in a row we beat Clemson that night. It was unbelievable. But I think that we got to get our guys. I heard Coach Danny Ford say one time, you got to let the puppies play until they turn into dogs, and they get mad about getting their butt beat. And I'm glad we got a lot of young players that are taking the beating from them. And Clemson's not our first. I mean, that's not what we need to worry about. That's the in-state rivalry, I understand, but we need to take care of business in the SEC. And again, we're 8-4. We surpassed expectations, and now you got to focus on the bowl game. And that's got to be our number one goal is figuring out a way to win a bowl game and get on that recruit trail.
Chuck, what did you see from an X and O standpoint watching the game from your Barco Lounger? What did you see X's and O's wise that Clemson did so well, USC did not do as well, and the game got away from them? How would you break it down?
Well, I don't think X's and O's had anything to do with it. I think it all came down to just level of talent on the field, and Coach Muschamp's done a fantastic job of getting to 8-4. Getting the program going in the right direction. But he inherited an absolute mess. I mean, as far as talent goes, I mean, he didn't inherit much. And it's going to take a long time to catch up with Clemson. Yeah, Carolina had a lot of young players. Clemson had 6 seniors that played. Excuse me. Now, they're going to have some juniors that go out. But, they're a very young football team, probably younger than South Carolina. And so, I think recruiting is certainly the only way to catch up. But, even in recruiting, I mean, Clemson is still recruiting at a very, very high level. And, it's going to take a long time for Carolina to get to the point where they have, the same kind of athletes on the field that Clemson has. Clemson has so many guys that can make plays, whether it be on offense, all their receivers. I mean, they bring the Higgins guy in who hadn't done anything all year to speak of. He's a young kid. He's the number one receiver in the country last year. I mean, he's 6'5". I mean, he's matched up against, the Williams kid who's 5'9". I mean, those are the kind of matchups, that Clemson's going to win every time.
Steve,
and defensively, we talked about it. They got 4 defensive linemen that are going to be first-round draft picks. I mean, those guys, you can't run against them. South Carolina didn't win a game this year where they couldn't run the football. And, and so, there's just so many areas that they've got to make ground up in order to get to where Clemson is.
A closing thought on Carolina, Steve, with the quarterback position. What is the future of that position? Because I think that the bowl game last year really misguided our expectations with Jake Bentley, and I'm very uncertain of the future of that position right now, unless it involves somebody else other than Bentley.
I have a lot of confidence in Jake. I actually ran into Jake this week and talked to him for a few minutes. And
I hope it wasn't at the bar.
No. You're not old enough. Come on now.
That's why I said I hope.
I don't know what goes on, but I know that he has a lot of talent. And I don't know that the offense is built to maximize his potential, and maybe we'll see some changes in offense because there is talent. There's talent everywhere on offense, and they have 8 guys coming back. They lose the center and the right guard, and obviously Hayden Hurst going to the NFL. But I think Jake's the guy. I think he's really and I think we just got to build offense around him. He's got 2 more years. He's a pro-style quarterback, and I think we can do a lot of things there to maximize his potential. Obviously the kid from Fort D coming in, but he's a complete different style quarterback. So we'll see. But I have full confidence in Jake, and I don't, maybe a little bit of a sophomore slump, but he's got a lot of talent, and I think he's the guy moving forward for sure, no question.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Chuck and Clemson and Miami Saturday in Charlotte, ACC Championship. Miami's lost a couple of key offensive weapons. Did not play well at Pittsburgh the other day. Do you see Clemson rolling through this thing, or can the Hurricanes, with their defense pretty good, can they give them some problems?
Clemson will beat them by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Miami, Miami, they do. They've got they're the fastest defense that Clemson's played all year. I mean, they can run and they can make some plays on defense. But they're not going to be able to run the ball on Clemson. The quarterback is very, he's up and down. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to be able to execute well enough to move the ball a lot, I don't think. And I just think Clemson's, they're too good on both sides of the ball. I don't see it being a real close ball game.
Well, guys, we want to thank you for being with us throughout the season. It was a great ride with you two. Your insight, your comments, can't thank you enough. And hopefully we can get you back together one more time during the bowl season to talk about those games when they're lined up. We really appreciate it. Coach, have a great holiday season. Same thing to you, Steve.
All right, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
But Coach never told us if he wanted
We're on Sports Talk, and we appreciate them being with us and sharing, their various the great thing about these guys, fellas, straightforward. They didn't hold back.
They're honest.
They told us exactly what they thought about things.
Very honest.
Well, it seems that Coach Reedy sees a Clemson coronation into the playoffs as long as they don't turn the football over.
Well, he was very blunt. What do you say? 2 or 3 touchdowns.
2 or 3 touchdowns.
They'll beat Miami. Yeah.
Got to watch out for that chain.
Yeah.
Don't trip on that chain on the way up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if Bryant he doesn't force passes. They should be okay in that from that standpoint. Okay, we'll be right back.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
And it's because of people like our next guest, David Shelton, that people do tune into Sports Talk and keep listening for all these years. David, in just a moment, with our high school football report, wanted to mention a couple of other quick recruiting items I didn't get to when I was doing the main recruiting report a little while ago. Rich Rodriguez, Arizona coach, was in to check on USC target defensive end Dorian Gerald at the College of the Canyons Junior College in California. He's also been contacted by new Florida coach Dan Mullen. Of course, South Carolina is very much involved with him. Muschamp and Travaris Robinson from USC scheduled to meet today with Florida State commitment defensive back Asante Samuel Jr., according to 247 Sports. USC offensive line coach Eric Wolford visited Monday with offensive lineman Jerome Carvin of Cordova, Tennessee. He's considering an unofficial to USC because he's taken all of his officials. USC offered 2020 back Isaiah Dunson of Tucker, Georgia, his first offer. Of course, USC is working on the offensive lineman there, Dylan Wanham, and Wolford was to visit with Wanham today, according to Hale McGranahan of SCC Country. USC offered 2019 defensive back Jaden Davis of Fort Lauderdale. So there you go. Wanted to bring you up to date on recruiting. Now let's get to the report for tonight, the high school football report with David Shelton of the High School Sports Report and the Post and Courier, brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. So get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. Okay, David, we're moving to the 4As. And, two traditional powers. One's been around forever. One's a relative newcomer the last 15, 20 years, but has taken its place in the state as a power, South Point and Hartsville. What do you think of this one?
Well, I mean, it's going to be really difficult for Hartsville to win this football game. They're going to need to play well. Last year they had some turnovers early, and it got away from them. And South Point is so good defensively and offensively and in the kicking game that if you give them an inch, they take a yard. You give them a yard, they take the football field. So, Hartsville's got to take care of the ball. They've had some fumble problems this year. They average 4 to 5 fumbles a game. They don't lose all those fumbles, but they have had some issues. So with that misdirection offense and things like that, they have to be able to successfully run the football without turning it over. They need to score. They're going to need to score 30 points at least, because I think South Point's going to be good for that at least. So it's difficult. I think South Point's the clear favorite. They're going for a 4th straight title. They've beaten Hartsville twice pretty handily in 2 other championship game meetings. So, it's going to take a very good performance by Hartsville.
Well, you talk about the talent on South Point. I mean, the quarterback will be a receiver at Clemson. The kicker will be a kicker at Clemson. The linebacker, Trimble linebacker, going to Virginia Tech to play linebacker. And on it goes. I mean, it's like they have an untapped flow of talent going into that program every year.
Yeah, it starts with great athletes, and then they're well coached, and they do a great job at South Point of coaching those guys. But yeah, I mean, the well has not run dry since Clowney and Gilmore. I mean, it continues to produce top talent. Kendrick is one of the most productive quarterbacks in state history when you look at his rushing and passing yardage. Yet he's going to go be a receiver. And his coach said earlier this week that he thought he'd be recruited as a defensive back. So, yeah. I mean, that kind of tells you when a guy has that kind of ability, he could play just about any position on the field. Literally could play any position on the field.
Is a school like South Point, in your mind, David, a problem because they have such an exponentially higher level of talent than its nearest competitor?
No, because I think they're on an incredible run. But there are some programs who have talent and who are pretty productive in terms of competing. I just think South Point is just 2 steps better than everybody else. It's kind of crazy. And I said this in August, and I had not seen them play, had not seen any film. I just, knowing the talent they had, they might be the best team in South Carolina, any classification. And I would stick to that. I think South Point could have played Port Dorchester or Dutch Fork or Dorman and if not won the game, been right in it. So, I mean, they're incredibly talented, incredibly well coached. They have that cocky not arrogance, but they're very confident. When they walk on the field, they know they're probably the best team, and they go out and prove it.
Yeah. And, of course, the dream would be seeing them play the 5A champion. Of course, that's not going to happen because a lot of people think they're the best team in the state regardless of class.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. Boy, I would. You know, you talk about a good fundraising for a great charity. Match up the winner of the Dolan Dutch Fork game against South Point and watch the money flow.
You know what? Why don't we do that and take that money and fund the Allendale Fairfax school system or something? One of the school systems in the state that needs funding that we read about all the time. Why don't we take that money and fund it down there and help out a school system?
Well, that would be one option. My option would be like a children's hospital.
My option would be to give it to the media that covers high school football.
Easy.
That'd be my option.
Or in particularly one guy. I could see it going to one guy. I'd be happy with that. And I'm not talking.
We could dream.
So don't even say it.
Hey, David, thank you so much, man. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow at Benedict, and we'll talk in person about the 5A championship game, which should be a dandy one between Dorman and Dutch Fork.
Okay, Phil.
You find yourself some food over there at Seawells there, Corn?
It's called a throat lozenge.
Oh, you can always find food at Seawells. But I think David hit on a point that I think is so important that we don't hit on enough, because we always talk about a talented team. But we've seen talented teams that are in tremendous disarray. But when you see schools like South Point, those guys not only talented, but confident and look at each other and accountable for their position and what they do to make themselves a winning football team. That's really what makes a winning football team, because we've seen a lot of talent in disarray and do not win football games.
I just don't like to see schools that have the ability to basically lap the field. That's my only issue.
Well, you're in the state of one of the greatest powerhouses of all time in the country. Talking about Somerville.
Yes.
With John McKissick. I mean, we have had our powerhouse teams for eras. Somerville had its era.
Yeah, I know it's cyclical.
Northwestern.
It's all cyclical. I understand that.
Rock Hill, Spartanburg High School had its era. Now it's the era of Dutch Fork, Fort Dorchester,
and South
Point. South Point, Latta.
Latta.
Really?
I was waiting on that.
Really?
Dylan.
I was waiting on that.
Dylan.
Really?
Dylan. Oh, yeah, can't forget Dylan. Well, Abbeville. I mean, we've got schools that, have just been dominant for many, many years, going on decades in some cases. So Kelly Bryant, and they said he'd never be a winning quarterback. One of 11 finalists for the Manning Award.
It's pretty amazing.
He announced after the bowl games, because this is the one quarterback award in which they take in your performance in the bowl as part of their decision. So congratulations to him. Yeah, that's pretty strong.
From the guy who wanted to run out before the first game even started.
Who's that?
No, I'm saying it's from the guy in Brian who wanted to basically not start the season before the season even started.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss expects to hear from the NCAA tomorrow on its years-long investigation into alleged recruiting violations. 21 violations alleged here. So things could get worse before they get better for them. And looks like the Outback Bowl wants LSU, which would leave South Carolina looking at Jacksonville, Tampa, or Orlando for its bowl destination. Top of the hour.
I think you read that one wrong.
I repeated. I should have just said Jacksonville or Tampa, not Orlando.
Yeah.
I said I did say the Citrus Bowl wanted LSU.
You said the Outback Bowl wanted LSU.
Yeah.
Did I say the Outback Bowl wanted LSU?
Yes.
I'll come back and fix that. I misread that.
Yeah.
Just tell me when. All right, 3, 2, 1. Now that he has decommitted from Florida State, defensive back Israel Mukamu of Bossier City, Louisiana, is looking hard at USC, has him up at the top of his list, along with Georgia, Indiana, perhaps Louisville, South Florida could get involved. He's taking a visit this weekend to Purdue. USC coaches Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson are scheduled to meet with him on Monday. Running back Lynjay Dixon of Butler, Georgia, is a former Tennessee commit. He's looking strong at Clemson. He's been there officially. He's also going to be taking official visits to Louisville, Oklahoma State, and Alabama. Spring Valley linebacker Channing Tindall will host Auburn coaches this weekend. He plans to announce in mid-December. Phil Kornbluth, South Carolina Radio Network Sports.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We are back. Hour number 2, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Busy Thursday night. Phil Kornbluth from Seawells here for the annual Palmetto Champions Awards banquets. The banquet's starting to get underway. We'll be giving away the winning trophies a little bit later on tonight. In the 5A upper state category, the back, Connor Shugart, the lineman, Jordan McFadden. In the lower state, the back is DeCarrion Joyner, and the lineman is Raekwon O'Neal. Upper state 4A back is Darion Kendrick. The lineman is Eli Adams. Lower state back is Tyler Gore. The lineman is Hank Manos. 3A upper state back, Amir Abrams. The lineman is Adam Henderson. The lower state back is Leo Albino. The lineman is Erickson Abney. 2A upper state back is Elijah Rogers. The lineman is Kelijah Brown. The lower state back is Kendall Moutry, and the lineman Emmanuel Tatum. 1A upper state back is Mateo Durant. The lineman is Josh Belk. Lower state back, Corey Fields, and the lineman is Micah Bryant. And the specialists, 5A, Chance Poor. In 4A, BT Potter. And in 2A, Cliff Gandis. Coaches, the upper state 5A coach, Jeff Herron. Lower state is Carlton Terry. 4A upper state, Brian Thomas. Lower state, Randy Robinson. 3A upper state, Tim McMahon. 3A lower state, Jody Jenrette. 2A upper state, Andrew Chisholm. 2A lower state, Kevin Crosby. 1A upper state, Corey Fountain. 1A lower state, Marion Brown. And the winners will come from those upper and lower state winners. Mike Morgan joining us now. Morgan on the move here on Sports Talk on this Thursday night. He indeed has been a man on the move with his various play-by-play duties with ESPN. And Mike comes to us courtesy of Founders Federal Credit Union. Their mortgage team is more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process, whether buying or refinancing. Visit foundersfcu.com/mortgage to apply today. And by BP Skinner Clothiers. Nationwide, folks get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner. Very best in suits, shirts, pants, shoes, and a whole lot more available to you right in Columbia in the Vista. No matter where you are, Brent will come to you. Visit bpskinnerclothiers.com and set up an appointment. Mike, every pundit in the world is waxing on Tennessee, so what's your take?
Wow. Beyond the obvious, it's an unmitigated disaster. I don't even know where to start other than when I first heard the hire of Graciano, I actually thought, you know what? That's not going to pump up the fan base, but it makes sense because I maintain, and I made the analogy, a little podcast we do, that Tennessee football right now is like the guy who is constantly turning down fairly attractive women with good personalities because he's going to get a supermodel in his mind.
The 5 who thinks he's a 10, basically.
Exactly. So, I mean, he's got like a very nice, charming, attractive Marissa Tomei in her 40s, but he says, no, I'm going to get Kate Upton. He's just thinking Kate Upton is going to come knocking down the door. And, you know, my message to the Tennessee faithful would be Kate Upton's not walking through that door. You know, Elle McPherson, Gabby Ireland, Tyra Banks, whatever other SI supermodel of the last 20 years, they're not walking through that door. Tennessee in 10 years is one game under 500. So this is not just a small little blip on the radar where they've struggled. This is a program that is, over the course of 3 different coaches and a 10-year period, has been below mediocre and has had drama to boot. And now you've just added more drama with the way all these people reacted. And I don't think they're indicative of the Tennessee fan base as a whole, but unfortunately, a very vocal minority got involved, took a man and smeared his name on completely unfounded allegations, And so now you're going after these other coaches. They see that and they say, well, why would I risk any type of putting my family through some of the nonsense that other coaches have gone through there? It's a mess, and it's unfortunate. I would love to see Tennessee and the entire Eastern Division get back to credibility, which I think it's lacked for a while now. But I don't know where they go from here, because a lot of coaches that would have taken that job 5 years ago, or maybe even 1 year ago, are not taking it now.
Well put. That kind of sums it up. All right, let's move on to hoops. I know you've been actively involved in a lot of SEC stuff, but I want to talk about Clemson last night. Don't know if you got a chance to watch the Tigers go into Columbus and do a nice job in catching up to and pulling away from the Buckeyes. And they have played pretty much good basketball all season long, except for the one stumble against Temple. Did you get a chance to see them? What's your take on what Brad Brownell has done to this point?
Well, I did not get a chance to see the game. I did the Advocare Invitational in Orlando and then drove straight down here to West Palm for a little vacay before I've got Georgia Tech, Tennessee coming up. Speaking of ACC hoops, I think Josh Pastner, if everything kind of goes under the bridge, so to speak, he's got that program on the rise. Look, I've always thought Brad Brownell is a good coach. Tactically speaking, I think very intelligent, bright, and good X's and O's guy. The issue for Brad Brownell is going to be, what is going to be the final line? What type of, are they going to get to the NCAA tournament or not? Are they going to win a game in the NCAA tournament? I think it's gotten to the point now where if you don't do that enough, even at a very difficult job, and I acknowledge Clemson basketball is a difficult head coaching job, but if you don't do it at some consistency, your name is going to be mentioned as a guy in the hot seat. I think it's fair to say that might be where Brad Brownell is right now.
I caught you working on Thanksgiving, Mike, broadcasting
Thank you.
my alma mater and watching Missouri play in that tournament, watching West Virginia play in that tournament. They had a pretty good final in that tournament. What were your impressions of what you saw in Orlando just overall?
My impressions are, well, everybody's obsessed with losing Michael Porter, who's going to be a lottery pick, that they actually, without him, are still very, very good. And they really had a chance to win that championship game against West Virginia. The only problem is, and it was exposed against Bobby Huggins' press, is that they don't have a point guard right now that's either A, experienced, or B, truly talented, or C, both. They're just kind of hodgepodging it and hoping that that's not exposed in close games. But if you just look at their length, with all the bodies they have down low, if you look at their players on the wing, and if you look at just the confidence in the air that's been lacking in that program, which has been moribund, as you know, I think right now Missouri could certainly be an NCAA tournament team, and a team that could cause a lot of teams in the SEC, a very deep conference this year, they could cause them fits because they're a tough matchup.
Well, you talked about how deep this league is in the SEC, and looks like it really not even a soft touch on any given night, but Mike, when they're playing as well as they can, and I know it's early, it's just a small sample size, but Texas A&M looks dangerous. If they get good guard play, they look like a dangerous team.
They're very dangerous. They have two NBA guys playing in the post, which is very rare in college basketball, one of which is back for his sophomore year. In the case where he could have gone out early and probably been a first-round draft pick, that doesn't happen very often anymore in college basketball. You're right. I mean, the question will be guard play. They lost some good guards from a year ago, but I think Texas A&M, it would not surprise me if Texas A&M wound up being one of the teams to beat this year, if not the team to beat. I think they're very talented. They're very dangerous. I look at A&M. I look at Florida. I look at Kentucky once they learn how to play together. Although I personally think Kentucky's going to have an issue with a lack of three-point shooting. I don't see it there like it was there in years past. But those three teams at the top are awfully dangerous. But really, you can go 1 through 10. 1 through 10 is the deepest I've seen the SEC in over a decade. And that, I think, is an encouraging sign on this conference on how it is invested in basketball, made better hires with head coaches, better facilities, and now they're getting better players. So SEC basketball has been in a rut. I think last year was a huge landmark year to get 5 teams in, 3 in the Elite 8. And now,
let me jump in real quick, Mike. Hang on. We'll come back to you. Right. We're getting on the move. Okay.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
An update from Colonial Life Arena. The USC women up 22-7 in the first quarter on Western Carolina. I think Western Carolina's got one win on the year, so this should be a walkover situation for the ladies.
First game after their first loss of the season.
Yes.
And we saw it coming because of the lack of depth. Quavos Moore has been out the whole season at point guard.
They had another point guard go down tonight as well.
Don't have a
Lindsey Swan.
Didn't have the waiver on T.O. Cooper. And the third game on the third night in the tournament when they've been pressed the whole tournament, and you knew the guards were going to wear down, and they did.
Yeah, Lindsey Spann tonight not playing because of a knee sprain. USC men play tonight at 9 in New York at Madison Square Garden. They take on the Temple team that beat Clemson in the Charleston Classic. Charleston, big win last night over Ohio State. Their head coach, Brad Brownell, joins us about a baker's dozen amount of minutes from now. 800-956-7266 is the phone number here on Sports Talk. Stan the Tiger Man's been holding patiently, and he joins us now on Sports Talk. What's up, Stan? How are you?
Wheel the peel. I'm walking on cloud nine, man. I tell you what, it's good to be a Tiger fan.
It is, certainly, man.
And I got to give you your props. Y'all done, you and Phil done an awesome job Monday night on the way it went on. And then the next night, you said, don't talk no more about the bottles. I think that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And but I tell you what, I'm a little disappointed in Phil. I never believed he'd have bet against the Tigers. What you think about that?
I found that a little curious myself, Stan. Yeah. Phil, unfortunately, not here to defend himself because he is now emceeing over at Seawell's for the Champions Dinner there to honor the high school kids. He had done left us, yeah.
Well,
it's unfortunate, but one thing I will say is the man does pay on his bets. That is one thing, and I think that's an honorable thing. I think he said he had an agreement with somebody who was a Gamecock fan before the season that the Gamecocks would win.
Right.
Who was a Clemson fan, rather, who said the Gamecocks would win, and that guy got him the sweatshirt. So he did good on his bet.
Mm-hmm. Did he bet about the point spread, or he bet on
I think it was straight up. He bet it straight up.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I don't know, Will, if you remember my score, I give a 38-17. I thought that was pretty close.
It's very darn close. Well,
I thought I hate Phil left because I'm going to get him. Y'all need to come up with a little something to give out a little prize for the people that come up with the closest score.
We'll have to think about that next year. We'll have to hold back something for next year to make that happen. But the one thing that I found very curious about the game, and we've talked about it all week, is the fact that I was very close with my 24-10 prediction if Clemson doesn't get 14 points right off the bat based on South Carolina's mental ineptitude that took place.
Yeah. The pick six, you might as well just pull the plug on the boat. I mean, that went, and that's where experience, you have to gain amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
You spotted a team 7 points, but a team that's superior to you. And let's face it, the teams that have stayed close to Clemson have been able to keep themselves on schedule, meaning no more than a 10 or 7 point spread. So your entire offensive repertoire is still open. People talk about you can't run against Clemson. Well, when Clemson gets a three-score lead on you, you can't run. You got to throw the football to catch up. The reason Syracuse was able to stay in that football game, the injury to Kelly Bryant notwithstanding, is they stayed close to Clemson early in that football game, and Clemson, for whatever reason, really had a hiccup in their secondary in that particular football game. Maybe the only hiccup this year.
Spinning it forward to the Miami game, no Mon Richards, no Christopher Herndon. I find this, and again, going back to what Chuck Reedy said during our Coach in the QB segment, where he basically predicted Clemson basically to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I don't think he's that far off base. I think that Miami has been a bit of a mirage this year in my mind, and I know that they will probably come in with about as talented a roster as any that Clemson has seen this season. I just don't know if they have all of the proper pieces to put it all together. I don't think Miami's the best team they've seen this year. I think they might have the most talent, but I think Auburn's still the best team they've seen this year.
Auburn is still, and they didn't see the Stidham, if they see them again, that they saw early. They caught Stidham before he got his sea legs. But Auburn, I agree with it. Their defensive front is comparable to Clemson. Not as huge in the tackles, but they are aggressive in getting to the quarterback and stopping him run.
Experience could be a factor, and of course Clemson has plenty of experience in this level, and a man who is part of that experience is defensive end for Clemson, Cleveland Farrell.
For somebody that, for a group of a team that hasn't been there before, I would say it's very, very hard. But the beautiful thing about us is that we've been in this position, 3 times in a row. So I feel like we're going to do a very good job, and we've been doing a good job of, channeling our emotions and understanding that emotion doesn't win you games. It really goes back to the details and the process of getting ready to play. And when you are out there on the field, obviously emotion is a part of it, but it should be more so passion behind it that drives the emotion, not so the emotion that makes you go out there and react to things. But definitely I would say, it's just the experience of being in a postseason like this one, as far as obviously having everything that you want, all your goals that you set for yourself still in front of you, getting a chance to play in the ACC championship and potentially the college football playoff. I feel like we've done a great job of, understanding that it's a process to doing these things and not getting overwhelmed with all the outside sources of it.
Understanding that it's a playing game, basically, for the college football playoff. Do you look at it as pressure or opportunity?
Opportunity always. It's never a challenge. It's never a challenge or pressure that you put on yourself. We always look at it as an opportunity because we are our own team. It's not last year's team. It's obviously it's big for the program of Clemson, but this is our team. This is a new team every year, and we have new goals that we set for ourselves, and we're always hungry for making a mark on our history and Clemson history. So we see it as an opportunity, man. It's going to be a great environment to go out there and play against a team who is, man, it's the best Miami team that we've seen in a really, really long time. Really, really good defensively. A very, very confident offense, with the quarterback and the running back. The wide receivers, obviously they have athletes all over the field. So it's going to be a great game, and I can't wait. Obviously they can't wait either because, last time we played them, we got the upper hand on them. And we know that they're going to have, all those great players they have back there trying to get in their heads and tell them, we got to go out there and put out a performance. If you want to be the best, you got to more so beat the best. And that's what everybody making us seem like, a lot of people think we're going to be come out as the number 1 team tonight on the college football show. But obviously it's going to be a great game because these 2 top-tier teams, and we both want that opportunity to go be in the playoff. Definitely.
Do you see you guys as having a big advantage because of all the things you just said? You guys have been in this position, whereas Miami has not been on the big stage in a few years now, several years.
Anytime you having that experience of being on the big stage, obviously, that can be an upper hand to your team. But those guys, they played in a bunch of big games this year, playing against Notre Dame, NC State, whooping up on playing Virginia Tech and coming out with W's against those teams. So, obviously they have some experience themselves playing in the big games, and that coaching staff that they have, Coach Rich, he's been a part of some great teams. So I feel like they're going to do a good job of getting those guys ready and not letting the moment overwhelm them. I feel like they're going to be just as calm and collected as they can be, for sure.
Clemson defensive end Cleland Farrell, of course, a first-team All-ACC honoree, along with 5 of his teammates, all coming on the offensive and defensive lines. And that's, I think, the big point here, Pro, going forward for Clemson. And it's weird because you see all these guys getting honored either by the ACC or nationally, and we heard earlier about Kelly Bryant being named to the Manning Award, but Clemson really does not have a singular skill player who dominates, who has the sex appeal, if you will, of a Deshaun Watson. They're getting it done in the trenches, and that's why I think they might be a more complete team this year than the team that won the national championship.
They are. They depended a lot on Deshaun to take them home. But this team, if you notice, they spread you out. And when they're successful offensively, they're getting multiple chances at the apple. Their defense gets 3 and outs. When they're getting 3 and outs, those guys spread the field. And Kelly Bryant, if you notice, don't have to throw the ball in tight windows. I mean, they are wide open
and
when they get open.
And he can throw a 50-50 ball to Deion Kane and have a pretty good opportunity to think that might be a 75-25 ball because of his physical ability and his jumping ability as well. We'll come back and chalk a little Clemson hoops as the head coach, Brad Brownell, joins us following a 14-point victory on the road in Columbus against Ohio State when Sports Talk continues on South Carolina Radio Network. Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes with you here on Sports Talk on South Carolina Radio Network. All right, the Clemson men's basketball team off to a 6-1 start, coming off a big victory over Ohio State last night. The head coach of the Clemson Tigers is Brad Brownell. And, Coach, first of all, congratulations on the win, but what did you learn about your team the most last night, overcoming a 7-point halftime deficit and getting a very strong road win in the Big Ten ACC Challenge?
Well, I just think we showed great poise and resiliency throughout the night. I think we got off to a little bit of a slow start. Some of that was because Ohio State was shooting the ball exceptionally well in the first 6 to 8 minutes of the game. And, we just battled. And we were down 10, I think 3 different times in the game, once in the second half. And just our guys just kept playing. And we didn't give in. And just slowly kind of whittled away at the game and had better possessions offensively, took care of the ball in the second half, which was really good and important. And then I think we just I thought the last 15 minutes of the game we played exceptionally well on both ends of the floor.
Bates Diop started off hitting from 3, and they said this big man is out there hitting. But I noticed, Coach, you kept within arm's length, and Ohio State, the big key was they weren't getting to the foul line. And I said, well, Clemson.
No, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah, he's a guy who can really shoot the ball. And there was a couple possessions where we were doing some switching. And I know on one occasion he just shot over top of one of our 6'3" guards. But we thought it was the switching was good enough to help disrupt the rhythm of their offense and also keep them out of the lane from some penetration. And I think that's what really kept them off the foul line. It's a good point because I think when they start making shots and then they're also getting fouled, then they're very difficult to guard. So we certainly went into the game trying to keep them out of the paint, keep them off the foul line, and I thought we did a good job of that throughout most of the game, really.
Looking at you down in Charleston, your inside game with Thomas and Grantham pretty much was so successful, which is why you were so successful down in Charleston. But last night, I don't know what got into your guards, Coach, but I saw the ball hit nothing but net in the last 12 minutes. They really had that stroke going from 3.
They did. I was really proud of them. Marquise was kind of having an up and down game. Marquise Reed, up until that point, had made a couple of good plays, but also had some things get away from him. But I thought he and Shelton Mitchell especially really played well down the stretch. We're a very good team in the open floor. I think you saw that last night when we get out and can run. I think we can be hard to stop. Those guys played unbelievably well, especially the last 12, 15 minutes of the game when we kind of pulled away and really took control. A lot of it was because of those guys.
What did you say to Elijah Thomas at halftime in order to spark his play in the second half?
Just talk to him about staying patient and being positive. He has a tendency to be an emotional young man and can kind of get down and get upset with himself when things aren't going his way. And he didn't get a lot of touches in the first half. Some of that was because Ohio State did some good things to help keep it out of there. There were other times when I think our guards missed him. We were trying to play a little too fast and had some turnovers and situations where we weren't patient enough to try to look for him in better positions. I thought the second half, sometimes it's easier when the coach is down there on the offensive end and we can call some things and just kind of settle your guys down a little bit. But I thought he was impacting the game with his defense. I thought he was doing some good things by blocking some shots. I thought he was impacting the game at the rim. I thought he was rebounding the ball pretty well. And so I was just trying to encourage him as much as possible and let him know that we were going to get him some touches in the second half and we were going to need him to play well to win. And he certainly did some good things for us. I think he had 11 and 8. And really some of those baskets in the second half, he had 3 or 4 baskets in the second half. I don't think you win the game unless you have a good mix of some 3-point shooting, some driving, but then also I think you need some post play, and he certainly gave us that.
We're joined by Clemson men's basketball coach Brad Brownell here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Clemson, a 14-point victory at Ohio State. I noticed, Coach, very much kind of like the Charleston series where you really didn't go very deep into that bench. I know you did use Amir Sims for 14 minutes, but a lot of the rotation stayed with your top 5. How sustainable of a model is that throughout the season? I know that you will get some games here where you might be able to showcase more of your depth, but I know that you probably want to get into a deeper rotation once conference play starts.
Yeah, we do. Mark Donnell is a fifth-year transfer that plays inside. He played about 8 or 9 minutes last night, and he usually plays a little bit more than that. So, we're very comfortable with probably 7 or 8 guys right about now. We did not play as much with Scott Spencer or A.J. Oliver. They're the guys that are still kind of getting comfortable. Clyde Trapp is another one. Clyde played great in our win against Texas Southern last week. And when Shelton Mitchell got hurt, he played about 25 minutes in the game. And so it was really more of a guards game. And I think it lended itself to playing smaller lineups. And Amir didn't play as much, and Clyde got a lot of minutes. Last night, because of the size of Ohio State, I just think the game lent itself to more bigger lineups. So we went with size. When we did make substitutions, our guards were playing well. And so we didn't feel like with the long TV timeouts that we needed to sub as much. We also have a young man by the name of David Scarra who's is sitting out some games here early on. Will be eligible in about another week or two. That is a bigger, older player that we think can help give us some depth at the wing. So we feel like we're getting there. Our freshmen are working hard. We're really proud of the way those guys are competing, learning our system. And I think they'll play more and more here as we move forward.
Coach, he's not a new recruit, and he shows so much promise his freshman year, probably some struggles his sophomore and junior year. But the rejuvenation of Dante Grantham, he looks like he is playing within himself, and he looks like he's ready to take on a more leadership role with his team going forward.
Yeah, no question. I think there's a little bit of a misconception with folks that a lot of people and sometimes Clemson fans want Dante Grantham to kind of be Jerron Blossom game, and he's really not the same player. Jerron was a scorer, a big athletic front court rebounder and driver and offensive player, and Dante is more of a pure like passer, dribbler, shooter, and Dante is unbelievably successful in the game in a lot of different ways. He probably doesn't try to score enough sometimes because he's such an unselfish person and a guy who really cares about the success of his teammates, an unbelievable teammate. And so he plays games like last night where I think he scored 11 points. He might have had 6 rebounds and 5 or 6 assists. He's one of those guys that he can have a lot of different things in his stat sheet. He's not just going to score 18 points in a game. He's going to get you 6 or 7 rebounds. He's also going to get you 4, 5, 6 assists and 2 steals. And so I think he impacts the game with his passing and his dribbling as much as his scoring. And he's an outstanding player. He's an even better person. We love what he's doing this year for us. And there's no question that when we were struggling a little bit last night, he was the guy that was in our huddle, encouraging our team to just hang in there and keep playing. And I think he's off to a very good start this year in a lot of different ways.
You got 2 games at home before you run into 2 teams that played each other back-to-back in the Elite Eight in Florida and South Carolina. You play in that Orange Bowl Classic with Florida and then back home to take on the Gamecocks. What do you want to see in these next 2 games against Asheville and Samford before you hit those 2 big games against the 2 SEC opponents?
Well, we're going to have to play really well in those games. Asheville, I think, is picked to win the Big South and is playing very, very good basketball. They really shoot the ball at an unbelievably high level. I think they're shooting somewhere around 43% from 3, maybe even higher than that. Took Vanderbilt to the wire the other day in a close game, lost by 3. And so we know we're going to have to play unbelievably well, deal with some different defenses. Samford is picked very high in their league as well. It's one of the reasons why we scheduled both teams. We wanted to challenge ourselves with teams that we thought could win at the mid-major level. I know Samford's going to play a lot of different zone, do some different things that you're going to have to prepare for that we think we'll have to see in our league. So it's a reason we scheduled those guys. And then obviously Florida and South Carolina are talented groups. Florida looks like a team that could be Final Four good right now with the way they're playing. And Frank's really got his group playing hard and young group, but they're going to be unbelievably disciplined defensively, very physical and tough-minded and, be hard to deal with. So we know we have very difficult games coming up. We're certainly pleased with the great win at Ohio State, but once we start practice again tomorrow, it'll be on to Asheville and others.
I've loved following your ball club through the early part of this season, Coach. We look forward to seeing you more, and thanks so much for taking the time to come on with us on Sports Talk. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you guys. Thank you for having me.
That's Brad Brownell, the head coach of the Clemson Tigers. We'll come back. We'll talk to Hunter Renfrow from the Clemson football team and an interesting note about another potential name that might not be interested in Tennessee on Sports Talk.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
You know, we didn't mention earlier today, Professor, that Tiger Woods made his return to the golf course today. Shot 369. 3 shots back at Tommy Fleetwood, the Hero World Challenge. There is a tournament that, of course, he hosts. Among the other notables, Ricky Fowler, Matt Kuchar, Kevin Chappell. Fowler and Kuchar at 5 under par. Kevin Chappell and Justin Rose at 4 under par. Dustin Johnson at 4 under par, 2 shots back of the lead. Also Jordan Spieth in that conversation as well. Kevin Kisner, 2 under par as well from the notables amongst those of Palmetto State connections.
What we have to find out, though, is Tiger was 3 under, 69.
Yeah.
First thing he does when he gets up in the morning, I want to ask him how that back feels. Because sometimes you can have a great round and then that injury comes back to haunt. And we'll see if he has staying power going into the weekend.
USC women 56-15 lead on Western Carolina. That is a halftime score. And I mentioned going into the break, this is from Doug Gottlieb. I don't know how necessarily credible that source is with him, but he says that he has a good source on him that Kevin Sumlin is not interested in a Tennessee job. I don't know anybody who takes this gig without finding out what happens with Jimbo Fisher first, because that could create another domino effect between that and also Scott Frost with UCF, because I'm sitting here and saying, if I was given a Sophie's choice between UCF and Tennessee, guess where I'm going? Not Knoxville.
Not Knoxville.
Not right now.
And let's face it. Everybody talks about Florida, Florida State, Miami. Central Florida, yeah, it's a commuter school.
It's turned into a good job,
but it's sitting in the middle of the Orlando St. Pete, and it's got about 55,000 students. I mean, they've got an athletic program where you can build a power there sitting in the middle of Florida.
Nicer weather, too. Nicer weather, too. 800-956-7266. Bob is on the line from Myrtle Beach. Good evening, Bob. What's happening?
Well, not much. You know, with so many openings for head coaches, I wonder why nobody's going after the Memphis coach. He looks like
Mr. Norvell,
up and coming guy.
Yeah, he's been. I think people want to see him have a little bit more success. Mike Norvell. Obviously, he's been there now. I think this is his second year. He went 8-5 in his first year. He went 10-1 this past year. I think they want to see a bigger sample size with him. I know that he's an offensive guru, and people have looked at him as kind of that up-and-coming coaching name, the offensive Brent Venables, if you will. But in my mind, I think people want to see more from him in that regard. But he's certainly a very viable coach. Very viable coach.
Maybe Tennessee might have to take him. Thank you.
Appreciate the call, Bob. I mean, that's, again, you know, like we said before, I think Tennessee is kind of overshooting its skis a little bit here, trying to find a lot of these sitting Power 5 coaches. And again, this goes back to something I've been talking about. You know, you don't just have Power 5 coaches go from a Power 5 coaching job to another Power 5 coaching job. When they get a job, they either are there or they get fired. If Jimbo Fisher left Florida State to go to A&M, he would be the 4th coach in the history of the Associated Press using the rankings. He'd be the first. It would be just the 4th coach who has won an AP national championship and then gone directly to another college job the next year. The last time it happened was 1977, and that was when Johnny Majors left Pitt to go to Tennessee.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And of course, when Johnny Majors left for his alma mater, which was Tennessee at that point. But Tennessee, you've already blown the press conference.
Yes.
So don't just find a good coach. And you never know where that good coach is going to come from. Chip Kelly was a head coach at the University of New Hampshire when he took the offensive coordinator's job at Oregon. Look at him now.
Clemson Tigers getting ready for Miami in the ACC Championship Saturday in Charlotte. It's hard to believe that Hunter Renfrow, 10 games into the season, had not found the end zone. The man, of course, who got the coronation and all the glory of having the touchdown catch in the national championship game last year, had been shut out of the end zone. But he has 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games and finally is hitting his stride.
I can remember going back to my freshman year, playing in Charlotte the first time. Coach Scott kind of getting the receiver group ready to play and just talking to us about how this is once in a lifetime. I mean, this is we aren't guaranteed this every single year. And it seems like every year we keep going back. So it's been pretty neat to experience. I'm not saying that, but we've been lucky.
Do you have any explanation at all as to how you seem to have had some of your best career performances in some of the biggest games?
I just try to be consistent, really. Just go back to the fundamentals and pressure situations. I think the quarterbacks, just working with them all year, they kind of realize that if they throw me the ball, I should catch it and take care of it. So I think just the consistency in practice is probably what maybe gains their trust a little bit.
People are used to seeing that kind of catch and run something like this on Saturday. After you scored and you got to the field the next time, was there any appreciation from South Carolina's corners, or maybe the opposite? Maybe they stopped talking.
Yeah, they stopped a little bit. I think they had a little hope when it was 20-0 come out of halftime, and we kind of first play hit that. So they kind of were down a little bit, and we knew we had them for the rest of the game.
Did you see a difference in Kelly between the start of the season as far as how he functioned?
Yeah. I from a leadership aspect, just he's always been a confident guy. I think the biggest improvement I've seen is, especially early on, he would scramble to run the ball. And I think you could see on the touchdown he threw to me, he scrambled and he threw it. And I think just keeping his eyes open downfield, that was one thing Deshaun was really good at. And it's good to scramble and not throw it sometimes because you limit turnovers and protect the ball a little bit more. But he's having some more big plays down the field by throwing it.
He has really broken out in the last couple of weeks. How much does his emergence make the offense that much more dangerous?
Yeah, just explosive. I mean, you can see on that third down where he hit that big go over the top. Just having Ray, me, Dion, and him out there at the same time, it hurts. It hurts defenses. Just having a big play guy like that where he can be covered and still throw it up and go catch it. You play some one high over the top. You're going to have to figure out which way you want to roll them. And I think they rolled him to me that time, so he hit T. But he's progressed, and he's gotten a lot better, more confidence. And I think this was a big game for him.
Coach, good. Thoughts on being back on top of the rankings?
Yeah, well, we're not. I mean, they haven't come out with anything yet, but yeah, AP. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to make Miami play any worse this week. It's going to be good whenever the season ends.
That's Hunter Renfrow here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. And I didn't mean to make it sound like he's having a bad year. He's not. He still leads the team in receptions, and he's high on the yards per reception as well with 10 yards per reception, but he hadn't found the end zone. And I think it's also indicative of the fact that there's one thing that Kelly Bryant does well, and that is that he distributes the football evenly. When you think about Renfro's got 50 catches, Deion Kane's got 49, Ray McLeod's got 40, T. Higgins has 17, and basically most of them have come in the last 2 weeks. I mean, he has weapons, and he utilizes them.
Again, it goes back to what's up front that counts, because he has time to gauge the field to see his first, secondary, and tertiary receivers, because he could have a cup of coffee back there sometimes. Also, the threat of the run open up passing lanes that other quarterbacks don't get, because linebackers have to stay back. And sometimes those intermediate routes, especially the ones that Hunter Renfrow runs, are wide open.
Yeah, that's the stark difference between this offense under Deshaun Watson versus this offense under Kelly Bryant. The bread is buttered by the run game. 36 touchdowns for Clemson on the ground, just 16 through the air, and they're just fine with that, I would say, because of the fact that they average 214 yards rushing per game. You're going to win a lot of football games with that type of average.
And, of course, because they don't depend on the quarterback's arm as much, they are scoring more and converting more short yardage in the red zone than they did in previous years.
Hope you enjoyed the program today. Again, if you missed our interview with Brad Brownell, we'll have that up at SportsTalkSC.com in a moment. Tomorrow, Corn also on location. He will be at Benedict College for the 1A and 2A high school football championships. And again, don't forget, Sports Talk will be in Charlotte Saturday for the Clemson-Miami football game. I'll be there representing us for that, so be sure to watch our coverage this weekend from the Queen City. Till tomorrow, for Brian Leonard and Professor Tom Hayes, I'm Will Pelagic. For Phil Kornblut as well, we'll say so long.